Sayyidah Fatima salam alayha, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah, and the members of her household, may peace and blessings be upon them, were threatened or attacked is one that has remained a matter of contention between Islam's two main schools throughout history between the Shia and Sunnis. During Abu Bakr's accession to the Caliphate and the events which unfolded at Skifa Banu Saida, Abu Bakr sent Umar ibn Khattab and a gang of armed men to the house of Fatima, may peace and blessings be upon her, compel Imam Ali alayhi salam and his supporters to pledge allegiance to him. Umar threatened to burn down the house upon Fatima Zahra and essentially all those who were gathering and conspiring in opposition to the newly appointed state leader Abu Bakr. Subsequently, Fatima Zahra was distraught by Abu Bakr's behavior, that she informed those who were not present on that occasion in the house during this threat not to return until they go and pledge allegiance to him. Now, to explore this historical event, we would need to investigate the facts that have reached us to determine if there is a basis to such a claim. Since this is a popular and well-established belief within the Shias, with the exception, of course, with some fringe opinions which don't outright deny the events, but particular details, there's a general consensus that Umar threatened Fatima salam alayha. Now, what's agreed upon by Sunnis is that Fatima salam alayha passed away 6 months after the death of the Prophet. The circumstances surrounding her death are unclear. Some claim it was due to the grief of her father passing away. Now, my focus will not be going into the cause of her death, but looking at the threat from the earliest Sunni Hadith and Sirah collections. The threat against Sayyidah Fatima salam alayha has been reported in multiple sources, a plethora of sources, and some of these are amongst the earliest materials to be found in Sunni Islam. This is important because when an event has been recorded by two or more unconnected sources and narrated by a plethora of people, it becomes it brings about confidence that the event happened and it has a historical basis, and according to the criteria of even Sunni scholars. Now, in my rebuttal, I'll essentially be covering the following 6 areas. Number 1, the Sunni methodology of censorship when it comes to the vices of the companions. Number 2, the reason for the gathering at the house of Sayyidah Fatima salam alayha. Number 3, Umar's threat to burn the house upon those who were gathering there. Number 4, the confrontation that occurred at the house. Number 5, the earliest generations who narrated these events. And number 6, finally, Abu Bakr's confession on his deathbed. So now, inshallah ta'ala, what I'm going to do is present you all a document, and inshallah we'll go and read these sources together. So firstly, I'd like to come to the Sunni methodology of censorship when it comes to the vices of the Sahaba. He mentions in his book, Rebuttal, Itiqad, page number 151, he says not to mention the vices of the companions, meaning it's not permitted to discuss the vices of the companions. Ibn Fawzan, in his book, again in the commentary of Rebuttal Itiqad, mentions in page 2, number 249, 252, he says it's not allowed to talk badly about any one of them, meaning any one of the companions. It's not permissible to seek their mistakes. Now, if some of them had any, not find them and show them to the people, and stop mentioning any of their bad qualities and the conflicts between. Now we'll come to another scholar, Al-Dhahabi. He mentions in his book, Sir Alam, volume number 10, page number 92. He says, if it's proven that the speech of the companions was based on hate and partisanship, then it would not be acceptable, but it would be folded and not narrated. And it's argued that we must refrain from mentioning a lot of the quarrels between the companions and their fights. Therefore, if, i.e. meaning the reports, must be folded and hidden, mashallah, and it must be eradicated. It must be eradicated, even so that the heart will be clean and gathered over the love of the companions and being pleased with them. And hiding these writings is mainly from the groups and some of the scholars. So as you can see, that when it comes to the essentially the Sunni belief, when it comes to the vices of the Sahaba, they don't discuss them, they remove these reports, they hide them, they conceal them, to destroy them. Now, I want to finish off from the statement from the book of Kitab al-Sunnah, volume number 3, page number 10, and Atiyah Zahrani says this hadith is sahih. So he mentions that Abu Awana wrote a book. Okay, so Abu Awana wrote a book in which there were the faults of the companions and other issues. So Salim ibn Abi Matzi, who's a scholar, came to him and said, "Oh, Abu Awana, give me that book. Give me this book about the faults of the Sahaba." Now, what did he do with this book? So he gave it to him, and when he got it, he burned it. MashaAllah. This is the school that involves basically, this is the type of censorship that when it comes to the vices of the Sahaba, this is at what level they go to hide and conceal the disputes between the companions. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, how How true of an account are we going to get from the books when it comes to this particular event, whether or not Umar threatened Fatima salam alayha and essentially all those who were gathering? Something to think about. Now, firstly, I would want to prove the point that why did Ahlul Bayt Islam gather in the house? So Ibn Hibban mentions in his book, Mashair al-Ulama, page number 10, he mentions the full name of Abu Bakr, and then he says he became a Khalifa on the day in which the Messenger of Allah passed away. He then spoke on the pulpit the next day after his allegiance. When they were finished with the burial of Mustafa, people pledged him allegiance publicly and called him the successor of the Messenger of Allah, and his rule became established in secret and in public. Then he mentions something very crucial here. He goes, except Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and a group from Bani Hashim with him stepped away from pledging allegiance until Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, passed away 6 months post death of the Messenger of Allah. Then Ali pledged him allegiance, and those group of people we have mentioned in the book of Khulafa. Now, there's a few points that we need to understand here. So we can see that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and obviously Bani Hashim, and obviously those who were in support of them, were not in support of what happened in terms of the events that unfolded at Skifa Banu Saida. So these individuals remained aside. And according to the statement of Ibn Hibban, Ali alayhi salam did not pledge allegiance until 6 months after the death of Fatima salam alayha, which is quite interesting because in the reports we're about to discuss now, this seems to suggest that this pledge of allegiance was something immediate, which then contradicts these particular type of reports, which we'll find inshallah later into this discussion. Now, this report about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam opposing them, here's a report from Sahih Bukhari. And then
sorry. Before you go to that, can you go to the Ibn Hibban source and focus on the Arabic text so I can read it or take a screenshot?
Sure, brother, sure. Now, I will prove this from the most authentic books of Sunnis. Sahih Bukhari has a long narration from Ibn Abbas. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quote the most important part, establishing that Ahlul Bayt al-Islam and Bani Hashim and those who were with them gathered in the house of Fatima. So this report is found in Sahih Bukhari, page number 1689, 1691, hadith number 6830. Ibn Abbas said, Umar said, notice this, and no doubt after the death of the Prophet, we were informed that Ansar disagreed with us and gathered in the shed of Banu Saida. Okay? Ali and Zubair and whoever was with them opposed us, while the immigrants gathered with Abu Bakr. We will come to the commentary of this particular narration. Ibn Hajar Asqalani mentioned in the book Fath al-Bari, volume number 15, page number 654, and he says, and his saying, meaning Ali and Abbas and Zubair, and those who were with them prayed from us. And the Ali and Zubair and those who were with them gathered at the house of Fatima. Very important. They gathered at the house of Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah. That's confirmed by Ibn Hajar Asqalani, and as you weigh Ibn Hajar Asqalani's commentary, the most famous of Sahih Bukhari.
Okay, again to the Arabic, I'm sorry.
Sure, guys. Sure. Okay, and then again, we've got another famous scholar on the commentary of Sahih Bukhari, Sahih al-Bukhari, Badruddin Aini, and he says, his saying, he opposed us, i.e. he turned away from us, that Ali and Zubair and those who were with them were left behind in the house of Fatima. So we can confirm now, based on the report, based on the narration from Bukhari, and the statement of these two scholars, Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam gathered in the house of Fatima salam alayha in opposition to who? Okay. Now let's come to the report about the actual threat. Sorry, I just went a bit before I hit there. So this report is very important because it establishes the threat that Umar made. Let's have a look at what he said. So there you can see the chain of narration. I'm going to go straight into the action narrator, Aslam, who was the slave of Umar, who said, after the Messenger of Allah passed away, when the allegiance was paid to Abu Bakr, Imam Ali alayhi salam and Zubair, as we've already discussed, used to enter the house of Fatima salam alayha. We've concluded that, we've proven that, and discuss about the action. When this news reached Umar ibn Khattab, he went out and entered the house of Bibi Fatima salam alayha. He said, O daughter of the Messenger of Allah, my most beloved is your father, and after him it's you. But, notice, he says, but by Allah, this love is not hindrance to me that if these people got collected in your house, Fatima, I will burn your house. Then he went out. And then these people, meaning Ali and Zubair, came there. Bibi Fatima told them, did you know that Umar came to me and swore by Allah that if you returned, then he would burn down the house? And I swear by Allah that he would do what he has sworn. So Sayyidah Fatima became extremely frightened. Allahu Akbar, the messenger of Allah's daughter. Then go reasonably and say your opinion, do not return to me. Then they went out from her and did not return to her until they pledged allegiance. Now let's have a look at the scholars who authenticated this report. Shitri says this narration is Sahih. And this is the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah, volume 21, page number 143 to 144, hadith number 9827. Let's have a look at the scholars. That's one scholar. Shah Waliullah Dehlvi, he mentions in his book Azalatul Kafar, volume number 4, page number 118, he says Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shaybah has narrated from Aslam with an authentic chain. So now we've got two scholars. According to the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim, this is the second scholar who's authenticated this report. Third scholar, Dr. Ibrahim Al-Umari, he says something interesting. He says its chain is connected, meaning that Aslam and what he's narrated from who? Umar. And it's a connected chain, and the narrators are trustworthy. This is the third scholar who's authenticated this, mashallah. Let's come to the fourth scholar now. Let's give you the fourth scholar, Farhan al-Maliki. He mentions in his book, Qara fi Kutub al-Aqaid al-Hanbaliya, page number 46, he says, the party of Ali was small in the time of the allegiance to Umar and at the time of the allegiance to Abu Bakr. In the early era of Abu Bakr, the division was due to the attack on the house of Fatima alayha. And some companions who were with Imam Ali Islam did not like pledging allegiance to Abu Bakr. This is proven with authentic narrations. And then in the footnotes, he says, I used to assume that this attack is a lie, and it's not correct, until I found strong chains for it. One of them is what Ibn Abi Shaybah has reported, which I've mentioned, in Al-Musannaf, through an authentic chain from Aslam, the stable Umar. So this is the fourth scholar who's attested this narration. Let's come to another scholar, inshallah. Sheikh Al-Munajid, he mentions in the Islam Q&A website, he says, there's something interesting. He says, I say, this hadith is Sahih. But however, he says something interesting. He says, Muhammad ibn Asaq said, Abu Bakr said Umar to lead Hajj in the 11th year, where Umar, brought Aslam. So he's saying here that Aslam was actually purchased when Umar was on the order of Abu Bakr. Umar went, right? And this is where he purchased Aslam. Then he says, even though he admits this hadith is Sahih, then he says, that is why this hadith is mursal. He says this is a disconnected report, but as to Aslam, then listen to, pay close attention here. As for Aslam, who's a slave of Umar, then whatever he narrates is what he heard from Umar ibn Khattab. So that's four scholars who've confirmed this narration. Now, who was Aslam? Well, inshallah, we'll get to that in the next round, inshallah. Okay, let's go to the authenticity of this report. Now, since this report is so problematic, we know a part of the Sunni dogma, when it comes to the vice of the companions, they have to destroy these reports, they have to hide, they have to burn their books, they can't discuss them with the public. Let's have a look at what scholars have said about the mursal narration. Okay, this is something important, because now, obviously, this report is authentic. Many scholars authenticated it, right? So the only way they try to attack it is by claiming it's mursal. So let's have a look at what the scholars have said about mursal narrations. Dr. Shuaib al-Hassan, in one of the books, which I'll inshallah present to you, under the chapter of the authenticity of the mursal hadith, he says the opinion held by Imam Malik and all Maliki jurists is that mursal of a trustworthy person is valid as proof and justification for the practice, just like a musnad hadith. This view has been developed to such an extreme that some of them, the mursal is even better than the musnad, based on the following reasons: that the one who reports a musnad hadith leaves you with the names of the reporters for further investigation and scrutiny, whereas the one who narrates by the way of irsal being a knowledgeable and trustworthy person himself, he has already done so and found the hadith to be sound. In fact, he saves you from the further research. Let's have a look at the scholars who accept mursal narrations. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, okay, and then Imam Shafi gives certain conditions. Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, he accepts mursal narrations. Abu Dawud, he accepts mursal narrations. Al-Hakim, he's extremely reluctant to accept the mursal hadith, except in the case of elder successors, no issues. As we already established, Aslam is an elder successor anyway. Ibn Taymiyyah, he classified mursal in 3 categories, but even himself, he also accepts mursal narrations. And this is in the book, in the introduction of the Science of Hadith, page number 24 to 29. And you can see, ladies and gentlemen, all the references are there for you to go back and check in your own time. Now, let's have a look at how they tampered with this hadith, because you know what? It's part and parcel of this school. And unfortunately, they have to destroy these narrations, they have to hide these narrations, keep them away from the public, burn their books, mashallah, burn people's houses and make threats. Let's have a look at what Dr. Salabi says about this report. He mentions the report, and then he says, he stops up to the point where, okay, I'll read it for you guys very quickly. It says that it was narrated that Aslam said when the allegiance was sworn to Abu Bakr after the death of the Prophet, Ali and Zubair ibn Awam went to that Fatima to consult with her. News of that reached Umar, and he entered upon Fatima and said, "O daughter of the Messenger of Allah, no one in this world is dearer to us than your father. No one after your father is dearer to us than you." Then he spoke to her. MashaAllah, that's it. They all had like tea and biscuits, and everything was over. Ali and Zubair came to Fatima, and she said, "You may leave, and may Allah guide you." And they did not come back until they had sworn the oath of allegiance. Then he says something interesting about this report. He goes, "This is what is proven and sound in addition to the soundness in the chain of narration. It's in harmony with the spirit of the generation and the fact that Allah has praised them, as we often hear all the time. Allah is pleased with all of them." Then he says something interesting on the next page. The Rafidas added to this part and added lies and falsehood, mashallah. So the Rafidas somehow jumped into their books and then they narrated these things, even though their scholars accepted it, no problem. Then he said, they said that Umar said, "If these people met with you, I'm going to burn down the house upon them inside because they want to divide the Muslims by delaying the oath of allegiance." Then he went out, and it was not long before they came back to her, and she said to them, "Did you know that Umar came to me and swore by Allah that if you return to this house, he would burn down the house with you inside? By Allah, he will fulfill his oath, so leave and do not come back to me." So they did that and did not come back until they had sworn the oath of allegiance. So this is something which we've already proven, but you can see now this report is caused a major indigestion that the scholars have to resort to this type of propaganda when it comes to accusing even Shias of making this thing up. Let's have a look at other scholars who distorted this narration. Ibn Abi Asim, he mentions exactly the same thing, and then he goes through the report, and then he says that basically, let me get to the point. Zayd ibn Aslam, from his father, he said the news reached Umar ibn Khattab that some people have gathered in the house of Fatima. He went to her and said, "O daughter of the Messenger of Allah, my most beloved to you, the father after him is you." Then he says something interesting. He adds the extra part. He says, "I was informed that these people have gathered in your house, but by Allah, if this is true, I will burn your house upon them." When they came to Fatima, Fatima said, "Son of Khattab came and said so and so." What's so and so? Sometimes they cut this out, sometimes they cut that out. Now here they got so and so, the religion of so and so, and he would do what he has sworn. So they dispersed until they pledged allegiance. So Amr ibn Abdul Munim says this hadith is sahih, and this is in the book Al-Mudhakkar, page number 41. Let's have a look how Al-Hakim is played with this narration. Again, similar sort of narration, and then it stops. Al-Hakim then authenticates it. He says the chain is sahih by the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim. Then Al-Dhahabi says something interesting. He says amazingly strange. Amazingly strange. So here is another example of the distortion. And Dr. Bashar al-Awad al-Maruf says this hadith is authentic. This is in the book Tariq al-Baghdad. So numerous scholars played about this tradition. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, again, in his book Fadail al-Sahaba. This tradition is Hassan by Wasila Ahmad, and he says that Ali and Zubair ibn Awam went to Fatima to consult her, and that's it. And then basically, and he spoke to her, and that's all. SubhanAllah, there was just like one big picnic, and then everything was fine. That's from Fadail al-Sahaba. Ibn Abdul Barr, again, another type of distortion, the same narration. They've distorted this narration so badly, they try to hide it as much as possible, right? I mean, when you guys get a chance, inshallah, you can read that for yourselves. These are numerous examples. So let's have a look. What have we concluded? We've concluded 9 scholars. Al-Shithri, Amr ibn Abdul Munim, Shah Wali Allah Delvi, Dr. Ibrahim al-Umari, Farhan al-Maliki, Al-Hakim, Wasila Ahmed, Dr. Bashar al-Wad Maruf, and Sheikh al-Munajjid. All 9 scholars said this narration is authentic. MashaAllah. Okay, let's have a look at some later reports that also support this incident. So these are later reports, no doubt. And I'm not going to deny that, but these don't actually contradict what I've already proven. So this is quite interesting. So this is from Ibn Awn, that Abu Bakr requested Ali to give his allegiance, and Ali did not answer the pledge. So Umar came with a torch. He came with a torch, some more information. And he went to Fatima. Fatima received them at the door, and Fatima said, "Oh, Umar ibn Khattab, do you want to burn my house? My house?" He said, "Yes." And this is stronger in terms of following what your father came with. I mean, giving bayat to Abu Bakr is following what the Prophet has recommended. And Ali came and gave his pledge and said, "I was planning not to leave my house until I collected the Quran." Yet bear in mind, when I started earlier, according to the scholars, this pledge of allegiance was not given till 6 months after. So I didn't even accept this account. I believe that they distorted these accounts as much as possible, and we shouldn't even be trusting what they've narrated. Then let's give you some more information about this event. Guys, can you give me my time? Can you give me the time, please?
Yeah, you currently have 9 minutes left. 9 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay, so this is another tradition that supports the previous incident. This actually established a clash that occurred between Abu Bakr's party, and obviously the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So there's two narrations here, and this is from Kitab al-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Ahmad, two chains. So the first chain goes from Musa ibn Uqba from Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. So this chain is actually disconnected, but inshallah we'll get to that afterwards. Who said, the men of the Muhajirin were angered and paying allegiance to Abu Bakr, and among them was Ali ibn Abi Talib and Zubair, as we established before. So they entered the house of Fatima, which I've already proven, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah, with weapons. More information, with weapons. That Umar came with a gang of Muslims, and among them was Usayd and Salama ibn Waqsh, and they were from Bani Abd al-Ashal, and it said that Thabit ibn Qas al-Shams, the brother of Bani Harith, etc. And then one of them took the sword of Zubair and he hit it on a stone until he broke it. Now here is another report. This report is actually not Mursal, it's a connected report. Musa ibn Aqaba from Sa'd ibn Ibrahim, Uqba from Sa'd ibn Ibrahim, who said, I was told by Ibrahim ibn Abdurrahman ibn Auf, the son of the Sahaba, Abdurrahman, was with Umar on that day, and Muhammad ibn Muslimah broke the sword of Zubair. Now there's two narrations. Let's have a look at the authenticity. Dr. Muhammad ibn Sa'id ibn Salim said this hadith is sahih. Both chains, he deems them as authentic. So let's come to another scholar who's authenticated this report, both of the reports. Abu Abdullah Adil says both hadith are Hasan, reliable. This is his annotation to Kitab al-Sunnah. Another scholar, Ahmed ibn Ali al-Kafeli, Ariyashi, he says the second report, the continuous one, which I mentioned, not the one from Zuhri, the one from the son of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Ibrahim, he says that this narration is sahih. So there are the three scholars so far I've provided details on, including the 9 previous ones which I've mentioned on the Aslam one. Again, Sheikh al-Munajjid, he says it was also stated in some strong narrations that some disputes occurred between Umar ibn Khattab and those who were with him, and Zubair ibn Awam, who was with Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with them, and that was in the house of Fatima salam alayha. And that there it is, you can see there for yourselves. So what we concluded, that 4 scholars have attested this. Dr. Muhammad ibn Said, Abu Abdullah Adil, Ahmed ibn Ali al-Kafeli, Sheikh al-Munajjid. So now we'll come to another report. This report actually connects the threat and the breaking of the sword in one report. So I'm not going to read through the whole narration. I'm just going to go from Abi Salama, who is one of the sons of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, like Ibrahim. And if you notice the red part, then Abu Bakr returned and sat on the pulpit, and the next day people pledged allegiance to him. And Ali and Zubair entered into the house of Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah, which we've already proven. That Umar came and said, come out for allegiance. By Allah, you either come out or I will burn your house down. So Zubair came out holding his sword, already proven this. Then Ziyad ibn Labayd al-Ansari from among the Bayda held him by his neck and pressed it. So the sword dropped from his hand, and Ziyad took it and said, no, but break it will break it with a rock. And we can go through the narration, the authenticity of this from the book of Jud of Hisham ibn Umar, page number 1 to 2, 1 to 5, hadith number 47. So let's have a look at later reports. So which again report the same thing. This is actually a mursal narration. This is a much later narrator, but again it's combining both things, the threat and the sword in both reports. Because this scholars couldn't make mind up what to hide and what to destroy and what to burn. Ziyad ibn Qulayb, this is a disconnected report, so just to make it clear. Umar ibn Khattab came to the house of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Talha and Zubair, and some of the immigrants who were also in the house. Umar cried out, by God, either you come out to render the oath of allegiance, or I will set the house on fire. We've already proven this. Then Zubair came out with his sword drawn, and he stumbled upon something. Then the sword fell out from his hand, so they jumped over him and seized him. Okay, great. So now I want to come to Abu Bakr's confession. So Abu Bakr's confession. So this is from the book, from Al-Hadith Al-Muqtara, volume number 1, page number 18. Very quickly about this book, in the introduction, it said about this book, it's one of the most sahih books after Bukhari and Muslim, and that's by Sakhawi. Suyuti says is one of them, which again, he praises this book highly, and he says that the author only obliged himself to connect authentic narrations. Al-Dhahabi says this book contains hadith that can be taken as proof besides what's been collected in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So this is how important this book is. Let's have a look at the report. And by the way, it's about connecting all the dots together. Let's connect the dots together. So I'm not going to read the whole narration, but this incident took place on the deathbed of Abu Bakr. And this report is from another son of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, who we established, who was involved in the attack of the house on Sayyidah Fatima. So this report comes from his son, Humayd ibn Abdurrahman, and he says from Ibn Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and it goes all the way up, and it goes up the chain, and then you can see the red part where it says that Abdul Rahman ibn Auf says he entered upon Fatima to wish him farewell during his sickness in which he died. Then he said, indeed, I do regret three things which I should have done. And those three things are, number one, he explains that, and then he goes on to say that one of those three things which he regrets is that I would not have uncovered the house of Fatima sallallahu alayha. And this hadith is Hasan, reliable, according to the Al-Maqdisi. Muttaqi al-Hindi in his book Kanz al-Amal has also authenticated this report, and this is according to Sayyid ibn Mansur in his Kitab al-Sunan, which, by the way, it's not found in Kitab al-Sunan anymore. If you guys can find it for me, please do let me know, but it seems as if they did another job of distorting and burning it. That's the status of Sayyid ibn Mansur. He was a major scholar for them. Siyar al-Alam Nubala. Al-Dhahabi mentions his biography, who he was. Again, let's have a look at what these guys done. We'll get to that inshallah. But this is an additional report. This comes from Zuhri. This chain is actually not authentic. I don't have any testations, but you can see there's multiple people who are actually narrating this event. And it's the same thing. Abu Bakr regretting that he did not attack the house of Fatima on his deathbed. Let's have a look at the distort of this narration, mashallah. So the part that actually says that he wished he didn't do that, he says, I wish I had not done, and I wish I had not done so and so. The religion of done so and so, so and so, everything so and so for these guys. So in summary, let me finish my summary, inshallah. What have we proven? We've proven that Sunni scholars have censored the hadith regarding the vices between the Sahaba. Number two, we established that Ahlul Bayt al-Islam gathered in the house of Fatima alayha. Number three, the threat from Umar and the authentication of 9 scholars. Brothers and sisters, pay close attention. 9 scholars have authenticated this chain. I've established the distortion that the scholars have done. I've also proven the breaking of Zubair's sword, attestation of 4 scholars, who I'm sure some of you guys have not even heard of. The threat and confrontation in the same report from the Jews of Hisham ibn Ammar. Abu Bakr's confession and his distortion and authentication by the Al-Maqdisi and Sayyid ibn Mansur. The 2 scholars authenticated that report. So in conclusion, we have collective generations narrating the threat and the confrontation. Let's have a look. Let's count these people. Number 1, Aslam. Number 2, Zuhri. Number 3, Sulaiman al-Timi. Ibn On. By the way, Sulaiman al-Timi is a historian and scholar. We can get to his biography. He actually appears in the chain in the one of the reports I mentioned in Bladri. Ibn On, a Mursal narration. These 2 were Mursal anyway. Ziyad ibn Qalayb, which again is Mursal. That's fine. These are all supporting narrations. 3 sons, mashallah, 3 sons of Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, the individual who was involved, right? Ibrahim, he reported the clash. Abi Salama, the threatened clash. And Hamid ibn Abdul Rahman, he reported the confession of Abu Bakr. Brothers and sisters, the evidence is pretty much clear. I'll leave you to decide whether there's something which, as Dr. Salabi said, half of these made up. Thank you very much.
So you still have like about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
No, that's fine. I had to. There's a lot of information there for everyone to take in.
He will donate it to me. He will donate it to me, I'm sure.
Inshallah, my bro.
All right. So now, so that concludes the first 30 minutes of Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer, inshallah. And now we'll hear the opening, the 30-minute opening of Brother Lax.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآل سيدنا محمد. Today I came for this debate with Brother Sayyid Ali regarding the attack of Fatima Zahra's house. The problem that we have to understand before we dwell deeper into this topic is that this is a historic event, and this historic event, as the brother showed, has many narrations, has multiple narrations, and has different details, and in my opinion, each one contradict the other, and you cannot get anything concrete from it. And I will go into details by discussing these riwayat. What I suggest, in order to understand what happened in that period, is to number one, stick to the muhkam. And the muhkam in this case is the narrations that we have that are very authentic and that describe what happened. And the problem is many of these narrations, will describe what has happened, as he brought the one in Bukhari. It's actually a hadith narrated by Ibn Abbas. So I'll start again. So we are discussing now the threat of Fatima Zahra's house. I will first start with something recent that the brother said, and it's the riwayah of 3 things I wanted to do and 3 things I wished I asked the Prophet and 3 things I wish I didn't do. So first I will start to upload the sources in order, and I will discuss them also in order. So in this narration, it has Ilwan bin Dawood al-Bujali, and I'm gonna first send you 4 scholars on what they say on this guy, and we will discuss this hadith in details because it has a lot of hidden things, a lot of other chains, and it's gonna be very interesting. So I hope you can follow through. So this is Kitab al-Du'afa al-Kabir. علوان بن داود البجلي، ويقال علوان بن صالح، ولا يتابع على حديثه ولا يعرف إلا به. حدثني آدم بن موسى قال سمعت البخاري قال علوان بن داود البجلي، ويقال علوان بن صالح منكر الحديث. So here العقيلي in his book كتاب الضعفاء الكبير talks about علوان بن داود. He says also called علوان بن صالح. He say لا يتابع على حديثه. He only narrates one hadith, and that hadith is a munkar. And then he narrates حدثني آدم بن موسى قال سمعت البخاري. Bukhari say علوان بن داود البجلي، ويقال علوان بن صالح منكر الحديث. That his hadith is munkar. We go to the next scan. كتاب الضعفاء والمتروكين، تأليف الشيخ الإمام جمال الدين أبو الفرج عبد الرحمن بن علي بن محمد بن الجوزي. علوان بن داود أبو خالد مولى جرير بن عبد الله، روى عنه ليث. Focus on this name ليث. He will come again in the chain. قال أبو سعيد بن يونس هو منكر الحديث. So here Ibn Jawzi is narrating what Abu Yunus said. I think Abu Yunus' book is not there, but he's copying from him. Say he's munkar al-hadith. We go to the third one. This is للحافظ الذهبي. Say الحديث أعلاه الذهبي يقول علوان ضعيف. That علوان is ضعيف. Okay. We go to the fourth scan and لسان الميزان، تأليف الحافظ شهاب الدين أحمد علي بن حجر العسقلاني، مولى جرير بن عبد الله، ويقال علوان بالصالح. قال البخاري. So here ابن حجر العسقلاني is narrating again. قال البخاري علوان بن داود، ويقال ابن صالح he's منكر الحديث, and he also narrates what عقيلي said لا حديث له يتابع عليه. He's also narrating what we already posted in the first one. And in conclusion وقال أبو يونس سعيد منكر الحديث. So you have 3 people: Bukhari, Abu Sa'id bin Yunus, and Al-Uqayli. Now the brothers will say that Ibn Habban actually did tawthiq of him, and we will go over that. So just so this is تاريخ مدينة دمشق، تصنيف الإمام الحافظ أبي القاسم علي بن الحسن ابن هبة الله بن عبد الله الشافعي المعروف بابن عساكر. Okay, this is page 419. I don't know which juz it is, I'm sorry, but the source is there. You can check it. So now here you have this same hadith of ثلاث, but you don't have Ulwan bin Dawood in the chain. Ulwan bin Dawood is removed, so you can bring that against me. Say, see, Ulwan bin Dawood, the one that you're saying is weak, he's not here anymore. And the person who removed him is called Khalid bin Qasim al-Madaini. So here he is narrating كذا رواه خالد بن قاسم المدائني عن ليث وأسقط منه علوان بن داود. So Layth heard it from Ulwan bin Dawood and Qasim al-Madaini heard it from Layth. But when Khalid bin Qasim al-Madaini narrated it, he said عن Layth and he did إسقاط of Ulwan. So he removed him from chain. And then ابن عساكر says وقد وقع لي عاليا من حديث الليث وفيه ذكر علوان. Say وقد وقع لي عاليا here it means that another hadith أعلى. This is an istilahi term in hadith, a better, smaller number of narrator. This one that Khalid al-Qasim al-Madaini has about 10 narrators. And so Ibn Asakir say that I saw a better chain with less people and there is ulwan in it. So, okay. Then we go to the next scan. الأنساب لإمام ابن سعد عبد الكريم بن محمد منصور السمعاني. And then he narrates about who's Khalid bin Qasim al-Madaini. كان يوصل المقطوع ويرفع المراسيل ويسند الموقوف وأكثر ما فعل ذلك بليث بن سعد. Layth that we already said. لا يحل كتبت حديثه روى عن عيسى بن أبي حرب الصفار. So here he says that كان يوصل المقطوع. So if a chain is مقطوع, he would add another man in the middle. ويرفع المراسيل. If it's a mursal, he will do رفع. He'll say no, that's from رسول الله. ويسند الموقوف. And a chain, if it's a chain, is a موقوف chain, he make an isnad for it. So he's a manipulator of the hadith. This is again الأنساب الإمام أبي سعد عبد الكريم بن محمد بن منصور السمعاني. Now here is الجرح والتعديل للإمام. This is the last scan I posted. الجرح والتعديل للإمام الحافظ أبي محمد عبد الرحمن بن أبي حاتم محمد إدريس التميمي الحنظلي الرازي. Okay, so here Imam al-Razi, what he says: Khalid bin Qasim Abu al-Haytham al-Madaini روى عن Layth bin Sa'ad. He narrated from Layth bin Sa'ad that we said he narrated from Ulwan bin Dawood. روى عنه أحمد بن منصور المروزي المعروف بزاج. سمعت أبي يقول ذلك. حدثنا عبد الرحمن حدثنا أحمد بن سلمة النيسابوري حدثنا أحمد بن منصور المروزي قال أحمد بن حنبل خالد بن قاسم يزيد في الإسناد. So now you have Ahmed bin Hanbal saying that, and the previous scan that I showed you. قال إسحاق بن راهويه كما قال كان كذابا. So also إسحاق بن راهويه. Okay. حدثنا عبد الرحمن أن أبي خثيمة في كتاب إلى قال سئل يحيى بن معين عن خالد المدائني قال كان يزيد في الأحاديث الرجال يوصلها لتصير مسندة. So here you have Ibn Ma'in, Ahmed bin Hanbal, Ibn Rahaway, all of these Imam saying that he had this special thing where he cut a hadith and he break it and he manipulate it like he wants. Now, I will post now another set of narration. Now, we will open now Ibn Habban, what he says. So I'm fair, I bring all the opinions with and against, and we discuss it. This is the best way to understand. Just quoting scholars and saying this is weak and this is strong without getting all what the scholars say and doing some ijtihad, a work of the brain, you will not reach the right answer. And I will, show you that also how the Shia have the same problem with accepting marasil. It's a universal thing. So now this is Imam Muhaddith ibn Habban. عبد الرحمن بن عوف عن أبي بكر رضي الله عنهما. وسئل عن حديث عبد الرحمن بن عوف عن أبي بكر الصديق ثلاثا وددت أني سألت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عنها. So here a student of Ibn Habban is asking him about this specific hadith. وددت أني سألته في من هذا الأمر فلا ينازعه أهله. That I wish I asked him for who this matter is, so no one would fight. وددت أني كنت سألته هل للأنصار في هذا الأمر شيء. Say I wished I asked him if the Ansar had anything with the Khilafah, if they were involved or not. And this is, contradictory because, the Shi'is and the Sunnis, they believe in Shart al-Qurashiyya lil-Imama. They say that, Shart al-Qurashiyya for Imama is universal. And I have Razi, he say there's ijma' that about Shart al-Qurashiyya lil-Imama. And the Shia believe in it. I don't believe personally in Shart al-Qurashiyya lil-Imama, but I can use it against you. That's how the Matan has a problem here, how we say the Ansar have something for it when all the narration you bring and all narration that are there are saying no, it's for Quraysh. Okay, وددت أني كنت سألته عن ميراث العمة وابن الأخت فقال so ابن حبان say وهو حديث يرويه شيخ لأهل مصر يقال له علوان بن داود واختلف عليه فيه. So you say this hadith is narrated for a sheikh of Ahl Masr and his name is Ulwan bin Dawood, and people have different opinion on him. فراواه عن سعيد بن غفير عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن بن عوف. So he's saying who he narrated it from. Now focus here please on this first name. فراواه عن سعيد بن غفير عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن بن حميد عن عبد الرحمن بن عوف. But the most important is سعيد بن غفير. Also he narrated it from Salih bin Kisan. So from Salih bin Kisan and also Sa'id bin Ghafir. Let's see what Sa'id bin Ghafir say about him. Very interesting. Okay, so this is Sa'id bin Ghafir. I posted it in debate resources. This is كتاب الضعفاء الكبير again for الإمام العقيلي. Say وأخبرنا يحيى بن عثمان أنه سمع سعيد بن غفير. He heard سعيد بن غفير say كان علوان the same person he narrated from him سعيد بن غفير say that كان علوان ابن داود زاقوليا من الزواقيل. Say now what is زاقوليا من الزواقيل? I show you what is زاقوليا من الزواقيل. This is Taj al-Arus. It's a very known Arabic lexicon. I'm sure it's hujjah on everyone. زقل الزقل بالضم والزواقيل أهمله الجوهري وقال الخرزنجي هم اللصوص. They are the thieves. And so I did some research. I couldn't get you any proper quote from a scholar that say what's zawaqil, but what we understand it's that they were Kurds in the Iraqi peninsula, and they were known for breaking the hadith, cutting them in order to get a golden chain. So this is about Ulwan bin Dawood. Now we go more about Ulwan bin Dawood. This is where it gets really juicy. Okay. Now here,
did you say juicy or majusi?
Huh?
Sorry, I just had to put that one in. Go on, carry on. Sorry, apologies.
Say again what I said?
Keep going.
I said, did you say juicy or majusi?
No, akhi. No, I said juicy.
I'm winding you up, brother. Carry on, please. Carry on.
Juicy. Don't worry, akhi. I have the respect. Don't worry. You are Muslims, inshallah, like me. Okay. This is a jarh والتعديل الإمام الحافظ بن أبي أحمد بن عبد الرحمن بن حاتم الريس التميمي الحنظلي الرازي. Oh no, sorry, it's the wrong chain. It's the wrong one. Now, as we said about this Ulwan bin Dawood, depending on who narrated this hadith from him, he would do different things. If the one narrating from him, he knows that he's not a thiqa hafiz, he's not a very scholarly, then, he would give him a chain. Sometimes it's mursal, or sometimes it's missing someone in the middle. But if he knew that the person he's narrating from him is a good scholar and he knows, he would, add someone into the chain and that someone is mubham. No one knows who it is. Like it's a kind of tadlis, and we will show you who is this mudallis that he adds him. This is called tadlis al-shuyukh from shuyukh. So if you open Tarikh مدينة دمشق, أخبرنا أبو القاسم بن السوسي أبو طالب الحسيني قال أن علي بن محمد أن محمد بن أبي نصر أن أبو حسن خثيمة بن سليمان أن محمد عبد الله بن زيد بن عبد الرحمن النهراني حدثنا الوليد بن زبير حدثنا علوان بن داود البجلي عن أبي محمد المدني عن صالح بن كيسان. So the first time he say عن صالح بن كيسان, he say I narrated from صالح بن كيسان. Now he adds someone else. Say عن أبي محمد المدني. He add between it. Why? Because Al-Walid bin Zubayr is a hafiz. So he didn't say I narrated it from Kisan. He said I narrated through someone called Muhammad al-Madani عن صالح bin Kisan. And then again, Tarikh Medina Dimashq. Okay. I think this is, yeah, it's the same thing. Both of them are the same chain. The last two I sent. Okay. Now we will understand who is this guy, Abu Muhammad al-Madaini. I actually tried to see who could it be, and I found about 17 people with that name. It's a very common name. So which one could it be from these 17? It's, you know, very weird for a person with these characteristics and what we know about him, and him being a zaquli, a thief of hadith, cutting isnad, and him doing this behavior. Now we go to a very, 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 very nice chain. Now this is by Ahmed bin Hanbal. Okay. So this is المنتخب من العلل للخلال. قال مهنا سألت أحمد عن حديث الليث بن سعد عن صالح بن كيسان عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن عن أبيه أنه دخل على أبي بكر في مرضه فسلم عليه فقال أما إني ما على 3 فعلتهن الحديث. قال أحمد ليس صحيحا. قلت كيف كذا. So he say Muhanna asked Ahmed bin Hanbal about this hadith by Ulwan bin Dawood, and he narrates it to him. So Ahmed respond ليس صحيحا, it's not correct. قلت كيف كذا, كيف ذا, how come. قال أحمد بن حنبل, he said أخذ من كتاب ابن داب فوضعه على الليث. So Ahmed bin Hanbal said he took it from Ibn Dab and he put it on Layth. Now this is not true. He didn't put it on Layth because there are other chains without Layth. But you know, Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal gave us something. Maybe the other part is not very accurate, but the first part is accurate because he didn't only do فوضعه عن Layth. He did it on other people too. قال الخلال قال أبو بكر بن صدقة. So الخلال now the author of this book saying قال أبو بكر بن صدقة روى هذا الحديث عن علوان بن داود البجلي من أهل قرقيزيا وهو يحدث بهذه الأحاديث عن ابن داب ورأيت هذا الحديث من حديثه عن داب وعلوان في نفسه لا بأس فيه. He said, I see this hadith in my own eye in the book of Ibn Dab. Now let's see who's this Ibn Dab. We open the second last one, تاريخ بغداد الإمام الحافظ أبي بكر أحمد بن علي الخطيب البغدادي عيسى بن يزيد بن بكر بن داب ابن الوليد. Then we go to the highlighted part in yellow. بحديث طويل منكر. قال البخاري وقال هو ابن داب فإنه كان ابن داب فهو منكر الحديث. So here Bukhari is saying that Ibn Dab is a munkar al-hadith. Now we here see who Ibn Dab is in the last scan. الأعلام قاموس تراجم تأليف خير الدين الزركلي. So you say Ibn Dab, he was born in 171 Hijri, died in 171 Hijri. عيسى بن يزيد بن بكر بن دائب, this is his name. الليثي البكري الكناني. أبو الوليد, he's saying his name. خطيب, شاعر, عالم بالأنساب. So he's like a poet and a public speaker, and he knows with علم الأنساب. And Rasulullah says, you know, كذب النسابين. Anyways, side point. من أهل المدينة أشهر بأخباره مع المهدي العباسي. So he narrates from Mahdi al-Abbasi stories about him. وحظي عند الهادي حظوة لم تكن لأحد. الهادي is probably another emirs of the Abbasi. He say that he treated him very especially. واتهم بوضع الشعر وأحاديث السمر. And even in شعر they accused him of doing وضع for شعر. So, and you know, this perfectly explains it, because this kind of ثلاث وددت وثلاث وثلاث is something that you can find in Arabic in you know, the Abbasi period. So I concluded for now. Let's summarize again. We say this hadith is narrated by Ulwan bin Dawood. We got the quote about who Ulwan bin Dawood is, and that he's a Zaquli thief. We show how he manipulated a hadith, created imaginary characters when he knew thiqat were narrating from him. We got a quote from Ahmed bin Hanbal and Al-Khallal saying that he saw it in his own eyes. In his own eyes, in Ibn Dab's book. So I think you know, that hadith is totally destroyed, and you know, there is no way for any rational person to accept it. And by the way, this same hadith has also another problem in the matan. It accuses Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu of doing tahriq of Fuja'a al-Sulami. And the whole thing about Abu Bakr burning Fuja'a comes from Ulwan bin Dawood in this chain, and from another chain by, who is it? Saif bin Tamim al-Dabbi. So, yeah, I will conclude with that. How many minutes do I still have?
You have about a minute and 30 seconds.
See, yeah, when you answer, you take much longer than... I will give it to Bayat, and then I'll continue later.
All right, give me this second. So, that concludes the 30-minute openings between Brother Lax and Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer. And now the 15-minute rebuttals will begin by I think it will be Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer to start the rebuttals, and then after that we will have 3 questions from both sides for each other, starting with Lax, and then inshallah we will have a Q&A with the crowd that is listening to the debate. Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer, you can start your rebuttal, 15-minute rebuttal, whenever you.
Thank you. Allah bless you, Brother Max, for trying your utmost best to defend Abu Bakr here, and Umar, of course. Okay, alhamdulillah. So I just want to go over my points, which fortunately Brother Max addressed. So I'm going to go over them one more time. I discussed the Sunni methodology of censorship when it comes to the vices of Sahaba. So it's no surprise that you're going to find contradictions in these reports. Point number 2. Sorry, brother, can you mute your microphone because there's a lot of disturbance from your side?
Sorry.
So firstly, number 1, the Sunni methodology when it comes to censoring reports. We've established that they used to burn the books, hide them, distort them away from the general awam, so the public don't even hear about it. So it's no surprise that many of you guys are not even familiar to this. Point number 2, the Ahlul Bayt gathered in the house of Fatima, Assalamu alayha. I established that. Point number 3, the threat from Umar, of 9 scholars, okay? 9 scholars authenticating this threat. It's very clear. The brother didn't even come to that point. The distortions of the threat, subhanAllah, we saw that. There's at least 5 or 6 scholars who played about with this narration. Some even tried to blame the Shias for it. The breaking of Zubair's sword. By the way, it's interesting. In some reports it says Zubair, and other reports it says Ali alayhi salam. So for those who say, why did Ali? You guys need to read your books, because according to your own books, Ali alayhi salam did. He retaliated and he fought. But anyway, we provided 4 scholars who authenticated that report as well about the breaking of Zubair's sword. I provided the report of the Juz of Hisham ibn Umar, by the way, another major personality. If you go out there, search his name, go on YouTube, Google it. He's reported essentially the same report as Aslam from one of the sons of Abdurrahman ibn Auf. And of course, the main thing which the brother Lax stuck on was Abu Bakr's confession, and which we also distorted, something that the scholars distorted. But inshallah, I'll address that as well. So my conclusion, of course, from the previous round was that number 1, it's been narrated from Aslam, it's been narrated from Zuhri, who, by the way, are all students of companions. Ibn Awn, Ziyad ibn Kulayb, these are the disconnected reports. and the three sons of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Ibrahim, Abi Salama, and Hamid ibn Abdurrahman. These are three sons of Abdurrahman ibn Auf who are. In terms of contradictions, why do we have these contradictions? Well, let's have a look. Not to mention the companions' vices. So no surprise, you're going to have these contradictions in your books. Al-Dhahabi, what does he say? If it's proven that the speech of the companion was based on hate and partisanship, then it would not be acceptable. So from get-go, your whole ideology, your dogma, you're not going to be able to accept these reports anyway, because you're not allowed to accept these reports. But it would be folded and not narrated, or burned in some occasions. And it's argued that we must refrain from mentioning a lot of the quarrels between the companions and the fights. Therefore, these reports must be folded and hidden. It must be eradicated. So yeah, your scholars have done a great job in eradicating, hiding these reports from the public. Then he carries on. What does he say? It must be eradicated even so that the hearts will be clean and gathered over the love of the companions and be pleased with them. And hiding these writings is mainly from the groups of some scholars. So of course your scholars are not going to accept these reports. But subhanAllah, some managed to slip through, and alhamdulillah, the truth cannot be hidden. So your first objection was to Ulwan ibn Dawud. Who's Ulwan ibn Dawud? The reason why the first person to raise criticism against Ulwan ibn Dawud, if I recall, was Bukhari himself. And one of the reasons why he's actually rejected it because he narrated this hadith. The poor guy narrates Abu Bakr's confession and he gets attacked for it. Subhanallah, right? So this is the only way around for them. But having said that, what does it mean to be called Munkar Hadith? What does it mean for them? Now, firstly, number one, Al-Dhahabi says, not everyone who narrates Munkar Hadith is weak. This is from his book, Mizan al-Iqtidal, volume number 1, page number 259. So just because Al-Wan Ibn Dawud has been called Munkar Hadith doesn't mean he's weak. Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he says, everyone who narrates Munkar Hadith is supposed to be graded among the weak narrators. That pay close attention here, brothers and sisters. None of the Hadith narrators would be None of the hadith narrators would be free from this. This is from Lisan al-Mizan, volume number 3, page number 202. Now, let's come to the scholars who've actually praised Ulwan ibn Dawud. Because I know the brother, was very quick to weaken and discredit him. By the way, this type of criticism is about it. You could find any type of criticism on potentially any narrator. Ibn Habban, as he rightly said, he in his book Al-Tuqat, the Authenticated Ones, volume 2526, has actually included him amongst the reliable narrators. So that's the first scholar who's actually amongst the first scholars who praised him. Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, in his book Al-Muntakhib, he says Ulwan himself, there's no problem in him. There's no problem in Ulwan ibn Dawud. Dar al-Qutni, what does he say? And he says, Abu Bakr Halal called this man, Ulwan ibn Dawud, the Sheikh of Egypt. MashaAllah, this guy was the Sheikh of Egypt. And they've just because he narrated the report of Abu Bakr, they just made him weak. How are we going to accept the report anyway? Even if it's authentic, you're going to say there's a problem here. Because you're not permitted to accept these reports. Your next objection was on Khalid ibn Qasim. Now, what's interesting is I've got a chain here, which I prepared earlier, of how this report actually comes. And what do we find here? We find that this report doesn't just come through Khalid ibn Qasim. So as you can see, in this report, Abu Bakr, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, and then it goes out. You got Al-Zuhri, which I mentioned, the report from Bladri, right? Nothing to do with Ulwan ibn Dawud in that chain. Then you got Humayd ibn Abdurrahman, you got Salih ibn Kaysan, Al-Layth ibn Sa'd, and then you can see it branches out with 3 other individuals. But if you go down the list, you'll see how different scholars have reported this confession.
Akhi, can you interact so I can understand the graph you posted?
You want me to zoom in?
No, you are saying that this hadith is narrated, there is a chain when there is no Ulwan bin Dawud in it?
As you can see from this graph, this report has been reported through multiple chains, through different scholars who narrated it.
Akhi, this one is from Layth. Who Layth gave it to? Where is Ulwan in this?
Inshallah, if you have
Layth
a refutation
from Ulwan. Okay, I'm sorry.
If you have a refutation, then you put in your 15 minutes. Jazakallah khair.
You can say, what was the point, brother? What did you want to say?
Where is Ulwan in the chain? Layth, he got it from Ulwan.
Yeah.
So
okay, please respond. Please respond in your time, please.
He said it's okay. He said he want to clarify. It's okay. Clarified. Continue.
So As you can see, this report essentially comes through multiple chains. These are actually the chains that this report comes through. I've already provided scholars, which I'm going to quote again. We don't need Abu Bakr's confession alone to prove this incident happened. This is just supporting evidence. This is the reason. And of course, it provides more details about the event. So here's another Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, and in this chain you see it's somewhat different, and it's the accusation. Is this the? Sorry, I think this was the accusation that you brought up about Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Now, the thing is, what's interesting is, the point to note here is the fact that Ibn Dabba, which you mentioned, student of Saleh ibn Kaysan, and he used to narrate history. So he's just another historian who's basically narrated this hadith besides Ulwan ibn Dawood and Layth ibn Sa'd. However, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, right, he's trying to attach this hadith only to him, without giving any proof, of course, right? Because as I said before, maybe we discussion just on this confession, inshallah, which by the way still doesn't save Umar for making a threat on Sayyidah Fatima sallallahu. His Diyal-Din al-Maqdisi in his al-Hadith al-Mukhtara, he deems this narration as Hassan, no problem. Another scholar, if you see in the red, Sayyid ibn Mansur, he in his Kitab al-Sunnah, and by the way, you guys have done a great job. Applaud to you guys. You've removed it from his book. It's not even available. I tried to locate this. If anyone out there can try to find this, do let me know. But yeah, you guys done a great job, and inshallah, as long as the Shias have your books, alhamdulillah, we'll make sure that you guys don't try to distort them as well. So yeah, I mean, he deemed this narration as being Hassan reliable. Who's Sayyid ibn Mansur? Al-Dhahabi says, Sayyid ibn Mansur, he mentions his name, the Hafiz, the Imam and the Sheikh of the Haram, meaning the Mecca Masjid. And he's the author of the book Al-Sunan, which we mentioned, the Confession of Abu Bakr. Who's Ibn Dabba? You mentioned Ibn Dabba, and you said that he, let me just read his quickly, in Tariq al-Baghdad, volume number 12, page number 468, Isa bin Yazid ibn Bakr ibn Dabba, Abu Walid, one of the progenies of Layth ibn Bakr al-Madani, and he came to Baghdad and stayed there and narrated from Saleh ibn Kaysan and Hisham ibn Urwa and others, and Shaban ibn Sawar, and he carries on, the other people he's narrated from, and he says Ibn Dabba was a narrator of ancient Arabic poetry, very knowledgeable in it, knowledgeable in the field of genealogy and knowledgeable in history of events of Hafiz in Sirah, and it's been said that he used to add into his narrations things that did not belong to them. No problem. Fine. The chain, again, another chain without even that particular individual who he's been criticized for, and that's obviously we've previously touched on that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I want to say in my rebuttals. I think I'll pretty much cover the brother's points, and that is that he still didn't address the issue. The fact that Sunni scholars have censored these reports, you're going to find these contradictions. We've proven that Ahlul Bayt al-Islam gathered in the house in opposition to Abu Bakr. We've established the threat that Umar made to essentially to say the Fatima or anyone who was gathering in the house. That was attested by 9 scholars. The distortion that Sunnis had to resort to in order to hide these reports. I provided authentication at least on the confrontation incident. I provided another secondary source from the son of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Abu Salama, apologies, Abu Salama, who's mentioned in the book of Juz of Hisham ibn Umar. And of course, Abu Bakr's confession. You can't hide from this. You guys are getting shot at all angles, and this is the great reality. You can't deny the fact. In conclusion, as I say again, we have collective generations narrating the threat and confrontation from Aslam, Zuhri, Ibn Own, Ziyad ibn Kulayyib, the 3 sons. 3 sons, not even 1 son, 3 sons. And by the way, even they played about this narration, because let's be real, it's their father they're talking about. Do you really think that they're going to say that their father was involved in attacking the household of the Prophet? Think about it. Just think about that. Anyway, I don't need 15 minutes. I think that should be enough to prove my point. I'll stop my screen sharing.
Okay. Just to make sure, you still have about 4 minutes. So do you want to? No,
it's fine. No problem. No problem. I'm done.
All right, Brother Lax, whenever you're ready to go ahead and start your 15-minute rebuttal. And again, just a reminder, and after that, We will have both sides, Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer and Brother Lax. They will each ask
I think
3
haven't
questions of each other.
haven't we done the 15 minutes rebuttal already? As in he had his 15 minutes, I've had my 15 minutes.
No, you've had your
No,
15
he hasn't
minutes.
had his rebuttal.
Yeah,
It's
he
his
hasn't had
rebuttal
his
now.
rebuttal yet.
Apologies. You carry on.
Yeah, it's okay. Brother Lax, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, you can start timer. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يعني a lot of provocative talk. You didn't talk about this. I will come to them. Don't worry. I prepared for all of it, and I will talk about it. It's just I didn't have time. I'm not gonna go over the idea about Ulwan bin Dawood. I think I proved it overwhelmingly. Being a thief, being a zaqul, having his book in Ibn Da'b, who also forges pottery, and he's always in the Abbasid empire, in the Khalifa's place, and Rasulullah saying, "Man dakhala عند سلطان افتتن," fitna will go upon him. So I'm not gonna go into that. I will leave it for the audience. We will go cover something about censorship. I agree with you that there is censorship. And there is a lot of distortions of ahadith, but contrary to what you may want to believe, I think Bani Umayyad crimes and Bani Abbas crimes are the ones who are hidden. For example, there is a bahth, maybe I send it, you can read it, about the killing of Hujr bin Adi radwanullah alayh, and tens of thousands of people assassinated by Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan in that era. And yes, it is distorted. A lot of the Khulafa, the Abbasids, Al-Mahdi al-Abbasi say, قتل البدعة والزنادقة, and he killed the Zanadiqa, and those Zanadiqa are all scholars who are doing Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. So yeah, I don't deny that there is some sort of distortion. Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal is very well known for that. He would also, sometimes when he would hear narrations by Abdul Razzaq San'ani, his sheikh, about Muawiyah, he would put his fingers in his ears to not hear it. So yes, there are certain Islamic scholars, Sunni scholars, that were extreme in that, as you said, like Imam Ahmed bin Hanbal, unfortunately. That's true, but I believe that the dhikr is mahfuz, and Allah said, Inna anzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun, and from the dhikr is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. And with enough research and enough tracking and looking between the books, you can get a clear image. And yet again, when I finished my 30 minutes, you said that you are defending Abu Bakr. Good job for defending Abu Bakr and Umar. And I'm not really here to defend Abu Bakr and Umar. I'm here to defend Ali and Fatima alayhim as-salam. Because لا يجتمع, it does not go in the heart of a mu'min, the love of Ahlul Bayt and the love of their killers. And this is why I totally reject this notion, and inshallah we will prove it. Okay, so we finished with Ulwan bin Dawood. Now let's go to Zuhri. You mentioned Zuhri. Let's see what scholars say about Mursalat al-Zuhri. You also mentioned about, we will have a discussion about Mursal in general. Let's start that. معرفة السنن النبوية والآثار لأبي بكر أحمد بن حسين البيهقي. قال الشيخ أحمد: وإنما قال هذا كلام طويل ذكره في بيان عوار المراسيل، فإن الزهري يروي بعد الصحابة عن خيار التابعين، ثم يرسل عن مثل سليمان بن أرقم، وهو قيمة بين أهل العلم أهل العلم بالحديث ضعيف. So he's saying that Zuhri, when he narrates with an isnad, with a full isnad, it's perfect. And this is true. Most of Bukhari's, even the narration you got from Aisha and in Saqifa, it's narrated by Zuhri. But when Zuhri does not do isnad, he is considered da'if. And we will go over why, especially for Zuhri, this is the case. Okay. So this is الحافظ جلال الدين السيوطي. العاشرة: This is the second one I posted. في مراسيل آخر ذكرها الترمذي في جامعه. So there's another مراسيل that Tirmidhi mentions in his book. وأبي حاتم and أبي حاتم وغيرها and others. مراسيل الزهري. So there's a whole section that scholars made on مراسيل الزهري. قال ابن معين ويحيى بن سعيد القطان. So ابن معين and يحيى بن سعيد القطان ليس بشيء وكذا. It's nothing. ليس بشيء. It's absolutely nothing. وكذا قال الشافعي and also so did the شافعي. قال لأنا نجده يروي عن سليمان بن أرقم. We see him narrating by سليمان بن أرقم who's ضعيف. Okay. Now the third scan آداب الشافعي ومناقبه. قال سمعت الشافعي يقولون يخابق فلو إيش؟ I cannot read it. وإرسال الزهري ليس بشيء وذلك أن نجد يروي عن سليمان بن أرقم. This is again by Shafi'i. Okay. The third one كتاب الكفاية في علم الرواية تصنيف الإمام الحافظ المحدث أبي بكر أحمد بن علي بن ثابت المعروف بالخطيب البغدادي. قال سمعت أبا عبد الله محمد بن إدريس. I heard أبا عبد الله محمد بن إدريس الشافعي الذاب عن أهل السنة والمنكر على أهل البدعة يقول إرسال الزهري ليس بشيء. The إرسال of الزهري is nothing. Okay, now here كتاب المراسيل تأليف الإمام أبي محمد بن عبد الرحمن بن حاتم إدريس الحنظلي الرازي. حدثنا أحمد بن سنان قال كان يحيى بن سعيد القطان لا يرى إرسال الزهري وقتادة شيئا ويقول بمنزلة الريح. يحيى بن سعيد القطان he say بمنزلة الريح like a fart. When you hear a mursal from Zuhri it's like a fart, like someone farted. Okay, we go to the next one. حدثنا عبد الرحمن حدثنا سنان الواسطي قال كان يحيى بن سعيد القطان لا يرى في إرسال الزهري. Okay, maybe this is because the spam. Okay. Okay. الموقظة في علم مصطلح الحديث. الإمام الحافظ المحدث المؤرخ شمس الدين محمد بن أحمد الذهبي. Listen to what he say very nice thing about الزهري. وغالب المحققين يعدون مراسيل هؤلاء معضلات ومنقطعات فإن غالب روايات هؤلاء عن تابع كبير عن صحابي فالظن بمرسله أن أسقط من إسناده اثنين. So saying that مراسيل of Zuhri and Qatada who are from صغار التابعين, that most of the محققين, the scholars of علم المصطلح see these مراسيل as معضلة. I don't know how to say معضل in English, but kind of contradictory or problematic, يعني does not make sense. ومنقطعات as منقطع. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now here in the last scan by جلال الدين السيوطي مراسيل الزهري. Okay, وروى البيهقي عن يحيى بن سعيد قال مراسيل الزهري شر. So البيهقي عن يحيى بن سعيد. So يحيى بن سعيد is saying مرسل الزهري شر من مرسل غيره لأنه حافظ. So he say the mursal of Zuhri is worse than the mursal of other people. Why? لأنه حافظ, because he is a memorizer. He has a very strong memory and he knows who he narrated from. وكلما قدر أن يسمع أن يسمي سمى وإنما يترك من لا يحب أن يسميه. And whenever he's asked he can put the name, he put the name. وإنما يترك ما لا يحب أن يسميه. Or he just leave the person that he does not want to include him in the chain. And you know, if we accept Mursalat al-Zuhri, then according to Shia sources, Ibn Abbas is a thief and he also backstabbed Ali. This is who builds his religion on Mursalat al-Zuhri. He ends up in contradictions. Okay, I will post more things. How many minutes do I have?
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay.
No, you have 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, now we are gonna show you examples, as you said, that the shawafi' don't accept marasil, except if it's from thiqa thabt, for example, like Shu'bah. Imam Malik used to accept marasil, and you notice that the earlier it was, they were more lenient with marasil, but as time progressed, which is more logical, they became more strict with marasil. And as I tell you again, this is a problem that also the Shia have, because you are divided into two groups of whether they accept marasil or you don't accept marasil. So this is a general problem when you are dealing with a hadith. You will fall into this and you have to decide. So again, this is the same problem we have, you have. The only way to understand which marasil you can take and not is by doing a certain ijtihad, or by taking the view of Imam Shafi'i, which I feel is very logical, as we will read now. Okay. تعريف الثقات لأبي الحسن العجلي. قال العجلي مرسل الشعبي صحيح لا يرسل إلا صحيحا صحيحا. He said the mursal of شعبي is correct. He does irsal except if it's correct صحيحا صحيحا. And here, for example, we can see that شعبي has a trademark. His trademark is that he does not take a hadith from anyone except he say حدثني. He tell him, did you hear it from the person you narrated from? So this is a trademark, for example, for Shu'bi and for certain kibar tabi'in. Zuhri, as we showed by 7-8 scans, scholars calling his mursalat as farts. And if we accept mursalat in general, then we might as well accept hadith al-gharaniq al-ula. إن شفاعتهم لا ترتجى, and then you destroy all of Islam. So we are strict with marasil, and scholars, you might see it as contradictory, but every tabi'i or every muhaddith has a different criteria, and so that's why the rules can seem like that, but you just have to investigate in it. So here, all the narrations that you brought from Zuhri without an isnad, for me, like Ibn Ma'in said, are like farts. So I don't consider them at all. And this is our standards. And yes. So now how many minutes I have? I need to talk about the house incidents.
You have 1 minute and 15 seconds.
How I will do it. That's okay. So can I have, for example, 10 minutes more, and then you remove it from that 10 minutes, and then something like that, so I can.
Well, I don't mind you having 10 minutes, brother, as long as you allow me to respond to some of the points.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. So now we talk.
Before you start, the moderators, we also agree with this, correct?
I have no issue with it. I think
I have no issue either. All right, so hold on. Let me clock back the timer a little bit.
Okay. Now we go to Aslam.
All right, go ahead and start now.
So the brother already said that Aslam was not there, and he said that it's a mursal, and then he was arguing from Hassan Farhan al-Malki that Aslam must have heard it from someone. I also agree with that. I don't say that the hadith is weak, as in Aslam for sure heard it from someone. Who is that someone is the question. I suggest that it is some of the munafiqeen. Maybe he heard it from Marwan bil Hakam, maybe he heard it from Muawiyah, maybe he heard it from someone that had this agenda. Now let's go into the hadith. This is like the statement I should have sent at the end, but we just so you have a general idea of what I believe. Now we go to that hadith in particular. I'm trying to find it. I didn't take a scan of it, so just give me a second. حدثني محمد بن بشر حدثني عبيد الله بن عمر ثقة حدثنا زيد بن أسلم ثقة عن أبيه أسلم ثقة أنه حين بويع لأبي بكر بعد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان الزبير علي والزبير يدخلان على فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيشاورونها ويرتجون في أمرهم. فلما بلغ ذلك عمر الخطاب خرج حتى دخل على فاطمة فقال: يا بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، والله ما من الخلق أحب إلينا من أبيك، وما من أحد أحب إلينا من بعد أبيك منك، وأيم الله ما ذلك بمانعين اجتمع هؤلاء النفر عندك أن أمر بهم أن يحرق عليهم البيت. فلما خرج عمر جاءوه فقالت: لتعلمون أن عمر قد جاءني وقد حلف بالله لئن عدتم ليحرقن عليك البيت. Now, when we look at this hadith, I can divide this hadith into 3 parts. The first part is where Umar hears that hears that Ali and Zubayr are going to Fatima's house and they're plotting something. And then the second part where he goes actually to the house and threatens her. The third part, or make that in the first part, he hears it and he threatens her. The second part is what Fatima alayhi salam tells Ali and Zubayr. And the third part is Ali giving bay'ah to Abu Bakr. So we said that we agreed. You said you don't have a problem that this hadith is indeed mursal, but he heard it from a certain sahabi. Now you can say that you bring a lot of muhaqqiqeen and this muhaqqiq said like this and this muhaqqiq said like this. I don't like this kind of tackling into the hadith. How about you become a muhaqqiq and you reach that conclusion using your own brain, rather than just sending me 10,000 quotes of people who did tasheeh for it or did tad'if for it. It's not really important. Now, when we say Aslam heard the first part from Umar, that Umar narrated this to him and that he went to the house and that he threatened the house. I want to ask you a very logical question that people just don't look at. How did Aslam know what Fatima alayhi salam told Ali and Zubair? How did he know the conversation? Was he with them in the house? Did he hear Umar? If Umar told him about the hadith, so how did Umar know exactly what happened between Fatima, Ali, and Zubair? So the only logical way is to say that he either heard her from Umar, we excluded Umar, or from Ali, or Zubair, or Fatima. Fatima alayhi salam, she passed away, so he couldn't heard it from her. So do you think that it's Ali or Zubair that narrated this story that to Aslam? Do you think it's logical that from all the khalq, from all the people, he didn't find anyone to tell the story except Aslam, the mawla of the person that prosecuted him? What kind of, it's very, 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 very illogical. Who could he hear it from? Maybe he heard it from Aisha, Munin Aisha. Maybe he heard it from her. Her house was very close to the house of Fatima and Ali alayhim assalam. So did he hear it from them? For sure not, because it contradicts the Sahih Hadith in Bukhari that I'm going to post right now. So this is the hadith of what happened. And this is the standard that I told you that we have to stick in the first time when we debated. That we take what is thabit, what is with the correct isnad, and what is narrated there. So here, this is also by Ibn Shihab, Zuhri, and Urwa and Aisha. But here, Zuhri does a full chain, which is perfect and accepted. See, and here, even Zuhri contradicts himself. And I will show you where Zuhri contradicts himself, how he can narrate that Ali gave bay'ah before time, while he himself said that Ali didn't give bay'ah until after 6 months. Now, so this Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri and Urwa and Aisha narrating this hadith, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن فاطمة بنت النبي, Fatima, the daughter of رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله, أرسلت إلى أبي بكر تسألهم ميراثها من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم مما أفاء الله عليه بالمدينة وفدك وباقي من خيبر. فقال أبو بكر إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا نورث ما تركناه صدقة إنما يأكل آل محمد من هذا المال وإني والله لا أغير شيئا من صدقة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عن حالها التي كانت عليها في عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ولأعملن فيها بما عمل بها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فأبى أبو بكر أن يدفع إلى فاطمة منها شيئا فوجدت فاطمة على أبي بكر. So Fatima saw on herself from Abi Bakr فهجرت, so she didn't talk to him. until she passed away. وعاشت بعد النبي, and she lived after the Prophet عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام 6 months. فلما توفيت دفنها زوجها علي ليلا ولم يؤذن بها أبو بكر, and Abu Bakr was not called. صلى عليها وكان علي من الناس وجه حياة فاطمة, and Ali didn't give bay'ah because because of Fatima. فلما توفيت استنكر علي وجوه الناس, and so when she passed away the people were looking at him, that استنكروا باستنكار, shocked why you still didn't give the bay'ah. فالتمس مصالحة أبي بكر ومبايعته ولم يكن يبايع تلك الأشهر. Look in this red, underlined in red, and he didn't give bay'ah in all of these أشهر. So we go back to the riwayah of Islam, where we have contradictions everywhere. How Umar narrated, how did he hear it from how did he hear what Fatima told Ali? And then if he heard it from Ali and Zubair, so Ali narrated to Islam that I went to give bay'ah, but he didn't give actually bay'ah. So he actually lied to Islam and he lied to Fatima alayhi salam. حاشا أن يفعل ذلك. But if you want to think about it logically and you want to take this riwayah as sahih, when we have evidence from Zuhri saying that no one gave bay'ah from Bani Hashim, and it's the first one you got from Ibn Hibban also, until 6 months. So this is the sahih, the thabit, that they didn't give bay'ah until 6 months. And Aisha, as you say, hates Ali. She hates him. So no problem. She would have loved it to narrate that he was forced to give the bay'ah for her father. She's a bad person as the Shia display her. So it's a very good motive to, also narrate that, Fatima said what she said to Ali.
All right, Brother Lax, your time is up.
Yeah.
All right. And you guys did agree before I gave Lax the other 10 minutes that Bayat Al Ghadeer, he would get the same amount of time for a chance to respond to the points that Lax would make. So I guess I'll give.
Thank you.
So 10 minutes to Bayat Al Ghadeer, and then after that we'll start the questions from both sides for each other.
So if you just give me a minute while I bring my screen up for you guys. Can you see my screen?
Let me go ahead and join real quick.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So firstly, I want to come to the point of how authentic is history. Big question mark raised essentially about these reports. Even though the brother did confirm, he does accept the report, in particular the one in Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, he accepts it as being authentic. But if we're going to start applying this rigid methodology when it comes to certain reports of history, what will happen? Okay, so Ibn Taymiyyah, Talkhis al-Istighatha, volume number 1, page number 76, he quotes Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal as saying, for 3 areas, Al-Maghazi, meaning history of battles, Al-Malahim, narrations about future events, and number 3, Tafsir, i.e. narrations about the commentary of the Quran. So in these 3 areas, technically there's no change. Okay, so if you're going to apply this strict methodology, you're going to be left with nothing. Then he says, and the meaning of this statement is that most of the narrations in those fields are mursal, the disconnected chain. So if a report or event was famous among the experts that has several sources, and mashallah, I did that today, I provided it from several sources, this is something that the scholars have accepted as opposed to things that do not fill that criterion. That's Ibn Taymiyyah. Now I'll come to a contemporary scholar, Dr. Diyal Umari, in his book Al-Sunnat al-Nabawiyya, Al-Sahihah, page number 27. He says, there's no doubt that subjecting every historical report we wish to accept to the same conditions required for validating hadith, it's a type of abuse. So this is what we're seeing today. We're seeing essentially a type of abuse. Reports in which these conditions are applied are not enough to cover the different areas of Islamic history, which produces gaps in our history. And if we were to compare the approach with the histories of the world, then much of it's based on singular reports or unknown historians. In addition to that, they are full of gaps. Then he says something very important here. Hence, for this reason, in the subsequent errors, it is enough to attain the trust in the uprightness of the historian and in the precision in recording history in order to accept what they have recorded, alongside utilizing the the principles of hadith criticism in history when there's a contradiction between two historians. And we have not seen any contradiction except the fact that these people attempted their best to distort it. The next raised an objection. He said, well, the thing is, how do we know who Umar got it? How do we know who Aslam got it from? Now, in this report, in Al-Mustadrak, there is a chain in which Aslam has actually narrated this from Umar. So this is the same report mentioned in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shaybah, but directly Aslam is actually from Umar. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down a little so you can see the report yourself. And if you look at the chain, I'll zoom up slightly. You can see Aslam has narrated this directly from Umar. Let's continue. The next objection the brother raised is about the Marasil, or the disconnected reports of Zuhri, even though the scholars have accepted it. Not a single scholar has raised this type. The brother did mention some, but inshallah we'll get to those. So in the book Taqrib al-Tattahi, page number 440, person number 6296, what is it said about? It says he was a faqih, a narrator of hadith, a jurist. All agreed upon his superiority and truthfulness. Narrated in Saysita, right? Narrated in the 6 books. Al-Suyuti, what does he say in his book, Tatrib al-Rawi, volume number 1, page number 148? And according to me, meaning Suyuti, the idraj that is done to explain the gharib words of a hadith is not forbidden. Then he says Imam Zuhri and other Aima of hadith have used this type of interpolation. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, what does he say about the Marasil of Zuhri? In his book Al-Kafaya, page number 386. Yaqub ibn Sufyan said, I heard Jafar ibn Abdul Wahid al-Hashimi saying to Ahmad ibn Saleh that Yahya ibn Sa'id said, the Mursal, listen to this, the Mursal of Zuhri is unreliable. So somebody said this. Let's have a look how Ahmad ibn Hanbal replied. Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, Ahmad ibn Hanbal got angry. And he said, what does this Yahya know about the knowledge of Zuhri? That which Yahya said is untrue. That which Yahya said is untrue. So even Ahmad ibn Hanbal rejects these statements of these people who try to make this claim. Now, what is the issue with the Zuhri statement? Let's have a look. This is the report that Zuhri mentioned. And he said, Al-Zuhri said, men of the Muhajirin who angered at the paying of allegiance. Among them was Ali ibn Abi Talib and Zubair ibn Awam. We already proved this. We already established this from Bukhari. What is Zuhri saying in contradiction to what's been established elsewhere? So they entered the house of Fatima. We've already proven that. Then the daughter of the Messenger with weapons. Okay, this is an addition. This part we could say is an addition. Then he says, then Umar came with a gang of Muslims. And then it carries on, and then it says they broke Zubair's sword. But we've already proven this. And how did we prove this? With the next chain, the second chain, which is a continuous chain from the son of Abdurrahman ibn Auf. And both of these narrations have been deemed Hasan, reliable, by contemporary scholars, like Dr. Muhammad ibn Sa'id, who said both these narrations are reliable. Again, another scholar, Abu Abdullah Adil, he deemed both of these narrations as being authentic. So you can play with Zuhri as much as you want, my brother. It's not an issue. Your scholars have accepted these reports. Now, what is the status of Mursal narrations? Already given the opinion. Imam Abu Hanifa accepted Mursal. Imam Shafi accepted Mursal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal accepted Mursal. Abu Dawood accepted Mursal. Al-Hakim accepted Mursal. But again, he only accepts it from elder successors. Ibn Taymiyyah accepts the Mursal. And again, many other scholars accepted Mursal narration. So if there's a difference of opinion in your school, that's not really my issue to deal with. That's your own headache, my brother. No disrespect to you. Ibn Ashur, what does he say? And among the disconnected narrations of the Tabi'een, those who didn't meet the Prophet but saw a companion, there are types about which there is not a disagreement to consider them as connected. Is when a Tabi narrates the companion whom they have met said such and such to the Messenger of Allah, so that this is considered like him saying, verily, the companions narrated to me such and such. About those who consider disconnected narrations from trustworthy Tabi to be proof, they see it from among the most authentic narrations. And this was the madhab of Imam Malik and his teachers, and Abu Hanifa, as I mentioned, and Tirmidhi, and Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, and Malik and the Maliki Muhakkikeen. And Abu Umar has narrated from Al-Tamhid, from Al-Tabri, saying, verily, all of the Tabi'een were in consensus among accepting disconnected narrations and there's not been narrated from them anything showing that they have rejected it. No, from anyone from the Imams after them until when? As you rightly said, brother, around 200 AH when Al-Shafi came along. But even with Al-Shafi, he brought these certain conditions, and those conditions that we must have one connected report, and I've already proven that anyway from the report I mentioned from Al-Hakim, but that's a whole separate issue altogether. And you can see it says that Al-Shafi himself said, if a Tabi who narrates the disconnected narration is from the greater Tabi who has not met the companions like Sayyid ibn Musayyib, then this disconnected narrations are acceptable and graded as authentic. So even Shafi accepts narrations from Sayyid ibn Musayyib, who was the head of the Tabi, and he has no problem in accepting his marasil. What does he say? In Markatul Mafatiyah, he says, I say, Mullah Ali Qari, the mursal of a tabi is hujjah among the jumhur opinions. So majority of your scholars accept it anyway. So what's the issue? Who accepted the mursal of Aslam? Bukhari himself. Here you have a report, Zayd ibn Aslam from his father Aslam, who said, while the Messenger of Allah was proceeding at night. So here you have a report from Aslam narrating what the Prophet did. How did Aslam know this? You asked the question. You said, how did Aslam know about the discussion that took place after these people left? Well, how did Aslam know what happened here with the Prophet? How would he know? Either he was present, or we have to assume that he's taken it from a companion, which is Umar, or he's a liar. Just accept that Aslam's a liar, and that's it. You should reject all reports narrated from Aslam. But you can never do that, because you'll end up in a complete chaos. So here you have a report from Aslam, from his father, Aslam, to stay with Umar, and he's narrating directly what the Prophet did. Here you have another report. Albani accepts the reports from Aslam narrated from the Prophet. And this is from Sunan al-Tirmidhi, volume 2, page number 23, hadith number 1319. And he's narrated a report, Aslam, saying that the Messenger of Allah said, and that's it. And then you have a report which is deemed as Sahih. Now, I just want to make a quick point here. What's interesting is Aslam actually saw the times of Jahiliyyah and also accepted Islam. So it's not unlikely that he could have been in this area to witness the event. And this is another interesting point, because if I recall, he actually belongs from he belonged to the Ashari, the Ashari tribe, the Asharis. The Asharis made migration during the lifetime of the Holy Prophet. So it could well be that Aslam was actually a witness to this event as well. And it doesn't rule out the fact that he didn't see it. Here you have another report, again from Aslam, who's narrating from the Prophet. MashaAllah. And you guys say yourself, anyone who lies intentionally upon the Prophet...
Brother Sayyid Ali, your time is up.
Oh, can I just finish my point?
What's the moderator?
It's up to his opponent. Yeah, if the opponent would allow.
What do you say?
Go ahead.
All right,
so very quickly, I just want to finish a couple of points. So Aslam himself, if he's intentionally lied upon the Prophet, then his seat's in hellfire, because according to your scholars, they've accepted many reports. There are many scenarios where Aslam himself, and I'm just going to quickly go through them, has narrated things when he is narrating discussions taking place between Umar and the Prophet. There's a report there if I want to go back and look at. Other Tabi'i, for example, Urwa, he's narrating from the Prophet. Bukhari had no problem accepting his reports. Aisha herself, just want to finish on this point. Aisha herself is in the book of Revelations, is narrating a hadith about what happened to the Prophet, and she wasn't even born at this incident. So what will he say about all the Marasil reports from the Sahaba, where you've got no proof that they've actually narrated from the Prophet himself? Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going on to the questions from both sides, inshallah, and that will be starting with last. And the maximum from both sides is 3 questions. I don't know if they agreed on a time for these 3 questions to be asked.
3 questions each?
No, I think it's 20 minutes now. 20 minutes for me, 10, and we're done. 40 minutes, we're done.
So you get 20 minutes to ask him questions. Just to get it straight. All right. And Brother Bayat Al Ghadeer, you agree to this, correct?
Sorry, brother.
10 minutes for me, Akhi. 10 minutes for me, because I already took my 10 minutes with the 15. So now 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes for Sayyid Ali, 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes for Sayyid Ali.
Okay, bro. You can have as much as you want, but it's 3 questions from the side. Is that correct?
Yeah. When I was listening to the conditions at the beginning. I also wrote them down, and it was that each of you asked 3 questions to each other.
That's fine. No problem. Please continue.
Okay. So 10 minutes. Can you start my timer?
Give me just a second. Let me get the timer.
Okay, I just want to clarify. Are you setting a time limit on questions, or are you setting a limit on the number of questions?
Both.
10 minutes to ask 3 questions.
No.
Right? Okay, what is it? I'm very okay, Nasser, you know the rules. You can
Yeah.
I don't want to waste any more time, but we've dragged this on long enough.
Okay.
10 minutes to
just give me my 10 minutes. Give me my 10 minutes. You can ask your questions. I'm not going to ask any question. I'm just going to defend. Okay? So just give me my 10 minutes. Take your 10 minutes. Do whatever you want with it. I'll just reply to you in my 10 minutes. Let's start.
Okay, brother, brilliant. Sure. So if you just give me a second, I'm just screen share.
And so then after this, we'll have the Q&A from the crowd, inshallah. So,
okay, so
now you want to stream or it's my turn?
It's Lax's turn right now.
Okay, I'll let you go, brother Lax.
Okay.
You wanted to defend the question, but
okay, ask the question. Ask the question. If it does not take too long, just ask the question, and I will.
It will do, brother. You go first.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right, here. All right, Lax, you go ahead. I'll start your 10 minutes now.
Yeah. Okay. Now I posted in debate resources. He said that Zuhri, he's accepted. Well, this is. I brought you sources, and you can see them, and you can see what the scholars said about Zuhri. And I'm telling you, if you accept everything from Zuhri, then you have to accept from Shi'i sources in Najashi, narrating from Zuhri that Ibn Abbas was a thief, that he stole Bayt Mal al-Muslimin, and it's also Mursal. This is a malaka. Zuhri, when he's acting as a historian, he does not do it well. He does not know when you open, for example, Al-Maghazi lil-Waqidi, for example, it's organized in a way. It's marasil, but it's organized marasil. Zuhri's marasil are all over the place. They contradict each other, and he narrates. It's not his san'a, okay? Zuhri is perfectly fine when he says from who he heard it from. Let's please make that clear. Now, I will show you now how Zuhri contradicted himself. He contradicted himself, so he narrated something that he does not believe in. Okay? Now, if you look in debate resources, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Fath al-Bari, جزء 7, صفحة 379, volume 7, page 379. وقال ابن حجر وأما ما وقع في مسلم, and he put the source. So there's basically a hadith in Muslim عن الزهري أن رجلا قال له لم يبايع علي أبا بكر حتى ماتت فاطمة. It's a question mark. So a man asks Zuhri a question. He say, did Ali give bay'ah to Abu Bakr until, is it true that Ali didn't give bay'ah to Abu Bakr until Fatima passed away? What did he say? قال لا ولا أحد من بني هاشم. And no one from Bani Hashim. Not anyone from Bani Hashim. So this is what is Zuhri saying from his own tongue. That no one gave bay'ah until after Fatima alayhi salam passed away. Now you brought the issue of Aslam and narrating a hadith. I told you I don't have a problem with Aslam hadith. And you also mentioned about al-Mu'minin Aisha narrating something before she was alive. Yeah, this is a different thing. This is Mursal al-Tabi'in, and it's accepted for multiple reasons because they were teaching themselves Islam, and this is proven by the Quran, and they used to pass the word of Rasulullah, and that who does not know pass it to the other one, etc., etc. And it was too early for them to lie. Anyone who lied would have been caught, at least pragmatically speaking. So this is a different topic, different debate about the Mursal of the Sahaba. Now let's look at the hadith that you talked about Aslam. If we can read it together, it's the last هدي السدي مقدمة فتح الباري في شرح صحيح البخاري. Okay, so now this one he's copying what Daraqutni say. قال Daraqutni دارقطني say البخاري أخرج عن القعنبي وعبد الله بن يوسف وغيرهما عن مالك عن زيد بن أسلم عن أبيه أن النبي كان يسير وعمر معه الحديث في نزول سورة الفتح مرسلا وقد وصل قراد وغيرهم عن مالك. قلت بل ظاهر رواية البخاري الوصل. So this is Ibn Hajar saying. He's saying, so Darqutni saying this is mursal. Ibn Hajar replying to him saying no. ظاهر الرواية أنها متصلة. It's not mursal. بل ظاهر رواية البخاري الوصل فإن أوله وإن كان صورته صورة المرسل فإن بعده ما يصرح بأن الحديث لأسلم عن عمر ففيه بعد قوله فسأله عمر عن شيء فلم يجيبه فقال عمر نزلت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم 3 مرات كل ذلك لا يجيبني. قال عمر فحركت بعيري ثم تقدمت أمام الناس وخشيت أن ينزل في قرآن وساق الحديث على هذه الصورة حاكيا لمعظم القصة عن عمر فكيف يكون مرسلا هذا من العجب والله. It's correct Ibn Hajar what Ibn Hajar said. He's saying Ibn Hajar saying here that here it's very clearly that he is narrating it from Bukhari because of the context of the riwayah itself. فإن بعد ما يصرح بأن الحديث لأسلم عن عمر ففيه بعد قوله فسأله عمر عن شيء. Say that Umar asked him about something. So in this one, in this narration, you can perfectly fine say that this all came from Umar, and I will agree with you. I will tell you no problem because Umar is involved in every single step of this hadith. But the hadith in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba is not like that. It's not like that at all because I told you and you still didn't respond to me. How did Aslam hear what Fatima alayhi salam told Ali and Zubair? And how can you tell me they went to give bay'ah when even Az-Zuhri here, as Ibn Hajar say, he said they didn't give bay'ah, not Bani Hashim. And not even Bani Hashim gave bay'ah until 6 months after Fatima alayhi salam passed away. Okay? So the one in Bukhari is not a mursal for these reasons that you have to understand that we are sure that Aslam heard it from a Sahabi. No doubt, he heard it from a Sahabi. In the riwayah, in Sahih al-Bukhari, about him narrating about Umar, you can perfectly say that Umar narrated because every single part of the story could be narrated by Umar. But in the story of Aslam, narration of Aslam, Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, you cannot say that this all came from Umar. It's illogical. And we say it contradicts what Umar said during his khutbah. And how do you want to get me to get you a quote from Umar saying we didn't attack the house of Fatima? So all the riwayah I have from Umar in Sahih al-Bukhari, where he talks about this, he brings the khabar of Saqifa that you already quoted. Say that خالفونا واعتزلوا في بيت فاطمة. Yeah, they went. They didn't come with us, and they went to Fatima's house. He didn't mention not I did that to them, or I forced them to give the bay'ah, or etc. etc. And at the end of the hadith, he say, and it was heard to me that someone said, and that someone was Zubair. That Zubair said, if Umar die, I will stand up and I will give bay'ah to Ali. He said, so I came to warn these from those people. He's talking about, imagine, he's talking about Ali. See that he's not diplomatic at all, and he says what's in his heart. He said, I came to warn the Islamic Ummah from those people who want to force election, to force the leader on top of them. And then he said that the bay'ah of Abu Bakr was falta. He said it was not perfect. It was falta. And then he said the last statement, that this will not happen, that someone will rise up and give bay'ah to another without the mashura of Muslimin, تغرة أن يقتلا, except they are killed. They should be killed if they do that. So he said on himself that what happened between me and Abu Bakr, we should have been killed for what we did that, but it was a falta and Allah waqana min sharriha. And it's over. Nothing mentioning about I forced Ali to give bay'ah, and it contradicts, again, we are saying that it contradicts the Sahih Ahadith in Bukhari. And what, focus on this, please. I want to hear your reply on this. On what Zuhri said that they didn't give bay'ah until 6 months. Not only Ali and Fatima and Zubair, but all Al-Hashim. How many minutes do I have?
You right now have 1 minute and 39 seconds.
Yeah, and another thing, you are saying, oh, you Sunnis, you are hiding these hadith, and no, there are many, and you can understand that how this story over time it's getting more details and more addition. If what you are saying is right, it should come the older sources that have more details, and the later sources don't have a lot of details because they start to cut it. But what we see is the opposite. We see that the earliest sources are not mentioning this, and the later sources, you have Kitab Sulaim, you have the Mursalat of Zuhri, you have Mursalat of Abi Nadara, etc., and they are increasing. Of Dawood al-Bujali is increasing after. So there is no censorship, man. Even if they said they are doing censorship, they failed. Apparently, they failed. I will quote you a couple of things from Kitab al-Jawhari, Fadak was-Saqifa, and read the narration. Everything is saying. One of them, Khalid bin Walid, is involved. He came, he left the Murtaddin, and he came. One of them has Aslam himself carrying the wood. Can you imagine? There is a narration that has Aslam himself carrying the wood.
This is a shotgun approach, by the way. Sorry.
It's what?
What you're doing is what you call the shotgun approach.
You shotgun me a lot, man. No, it's in the same line of questioning. Anyways, I hope you answer the quote of Zuhri that I sent you, and you also answer my response to why the one Aslam narrating Umar on the Hajj on Rasulullah is not mursal, because Umar could narrate every single part of the story without any problem, while in the case
your time is up. All right, brother Bayat Al Ghadeer, you will have 10 minutes to respond, and then after that we'll have the people listening to the debate ask questions.
I was hoping to ask questions from my side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I think you guys did before agree on that you guys would have.
Okay, that's fine. I will quickly present my points. Now, the thing is, look, okay, give us a second. So I'm just going to quickly screen share for you guys.
All right.
Please start my time when I... Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, brother.
Okay, so the narration I presented from Zuhri, right? From Zuhri. What is it? Zuhri said, the men of the Muhajireen were angered at paying allegiance of Abu Bakr. Among them was Zubair ibn Awam. So they entered the house of Fatima, the daughter of the Messenger of Allah, with weapons. Then Umar came with a gang of Muslims. Now, where does it say anything about the bay'ah? There's no mention of the bay'ah. And whatever I read from here was supported by other narrations which I provided. Like, for example, the one directly underneath with a direct chain. But it seems my brother, he skipped that part. Now, as for Zuhri narrating the duration of the bay'ah, this is the entire point, my brother. You've got one narration in Musannaf where it says that they came to the house of Sayyidah Fatima, and they made a threat. And then Ali and Zubair came and they went and pledged allegiance. So you have this report. In your books of hadith, you have other reports that Ali alayhi salam went and pledged allegiance immediately. So this is another type of report that exists in your book. Then you have the third type of report, which you mentioned, the one from Zuhri, that says the Pledge of Allegiance was given 6 months after. Brother, it's not my fault that your books have contradictions and you had to hide these things and events away. I mean, I'll give you, I'll show the viewers what I mean by this very quickly. So in front of you, you will see essentially at least 6-7 different reports, which I'm not going to read out. You can check this out in your own time, which talks about the duration of the bay'ah. Okay, so the first from Abu Rafai, and that's the chain. You guys can go back, inshallah, you can check the chain out. The second narration from Abdurrahman ibn Auf, it talks about the duration and it talks about how the Pledge of Allegiance was given. The third narration from Abu Sayyid al-Khudri, which talks about the duration of the bay'ah. Fourth report from Ibn Abbas, which talks about the duration of bay'ah. The fifth report from Aisha herself, right, which the brother mentioned. Okay, and there are so many contradictions on the subject of bay'ah. If time wills, inshallah, next time we can go through these reports and we can show you how Sunnis have concocted and fabricated and distorted even the narrations about the bay'ah, the duration of bay'ah. Some say immediate, some say, mashallah, after the threat was made. This is the type of bay'ah these guys talk about. When you go to somebody's house and you bring fire and you threaten the members of the house. This is what these guys, and by the way, taking bay'ah by force is a valid way of accepting bay'ah according to them as well. We can inshallah discuss that. Ghadeer has also commented on this as well. He talks about the duration, and he talks about these differences in reports. I don't deny this. I know that you. And look, there's a chart for you guys to have a look. These are the different people who've narrated, and you'll notice there's all sorts of contradictions that is taking place. But if time wills, as I said, inshallah, next time we will definitely. Now, there's a few things that I want to bring up. How long do I have, brother?
You currently have 6 minutes and 55 seconds.
Okay, I just want to quickly bring up my some questions I was going to ask the brother. So if you just bear with me a minute, I'm just going to quickly screen share. But obviously, the brother doesn't have to. It's just some points that I wanted to mention. Actually, tell me when you see my.
Yes, I can see your screen.
So I just want to quote some very interesting things, right? So did Umar have the violent nature towards women? And what can be established is, according to Sunni scholars, number one, in the book Al-Faruq by Life of Umar the Great, volume number 2, page number 331, 332. He says about Umar, his domestic life is not well known. It appears that he was not fond of his wives or children, his own flesh and blood. Of wives especially, he was not very fond of. It was due to perhaps the fact that he did not have that regard for womankind, mashallah, which one ought to have. Bukhari in his chapter of dress reports him saying, in the pagan days, we looked upon women as mere nothings. So it's no surprise that he behaved this way to say the Fatima. If he can't behave in a certain ethical way when it comes to his children and his wives, what do you think about, say, the Fatima? You think he's going to excuse her? And then he says, when the Quran was revealed and in it was the mention of womankind, it was then that we learnt that they too were somebodies, mashallah. Still, we never allowed them to interfere with our affairs. Important. Still, we never allowed them to interfere with our affairs, meaning the affairs, we know the affairs of Abu Bakr and what he ordered them to do. Then he carries on and he talks about other incidences about where basically you can see how Umar conducted himself with women. And there's other narrations as well. For example, a companion narrates, Ibn Abbas, who said that once Uthman ibn Maz'un spent the night there in his house, and then he woke up one night, and whereupon he heard a woman crying, and then Umar started to beat his wife with a whip. So the Messenger of Allah took his hand and said, "Leave them, O Umar." And this hadith has been deemed as Sahih by Ahmad Shakir. So this guy was a misogynist, there's no doubt. He had no respect for womankind. He used to beat his wives in the middle of the night. I mean, here's another example. Ashla ibn Qais said, I was at the guest at the house of Umar one night in the middle of the night. He went and hit his wife. This is what to do. This is the type of person, misogynist Umar. So it's no surprise he conducted himself in this particular way. And then there's other reports as well where Umar actually attacked the women for mourning, or even the death of Abu Bakr. There's a particular narration there for you guys to go back and read on. How long do I have?
You currently have 4 minutes and 14 seconds.
Okay, great. So can we rule out the possibility of this event occurring? No, we can't, because we know his type of nature he has. There's instances where Umar, okay, let me read this tradition from Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba. The narration is Sahih by Al-Shithri, says it's Sahih narration. From Ibn Umar, the son of Umar, who said Umar was informed that one of his sons had covered the walls of his house with a cloth. So he said, by Allah, if it's true, I will burn his house. So man, this guy was, well, this guy used to go around threatening to burn people's house, even if it's his own children. He's got no reluctancy to do that. Here's another report, Umar doing the same thing, and this is about a companion. So a companion, it was informed that a companion was selling, he was consuming alcohol. So it says that Abu Ubaid, Umar discovered alcohol in the house of a man, and this man, by the way, was a companion. And then therefore Umar burnt his house. And then it was asked him, what's your name? And he replied what his name was. And by the way, this narration has also been deemed authentic by Albani. So you can go back to and check that yourself. It's the same report which I just mentioned. So he had this guy was part and parcel of he was very we can't rule it out of his nature. Again, Shibli Nomani in his book Al-Faruq, he reports the narration of Tariq al-Tabari, and then it's interesting. He says, but there is no reason to deny the occurrence of this event in light of the rationalism. Umar was a man of hot irrational temper, and such an act would have not been inconsistent with his nature. Okay. And finally, just want to finish on a quick point because I probably don't have enough time. There's a narration that says, this from Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Ahmad al-Zayn says the hadith is Sahih. From Khalid reported, the Messenger of Allah said, whoever terrorizes the people of Medina with oppression, like Umar did, Allah will terrorize him. The curse of Allah and the angels and the people all together will be upon him. Allah will not accept his obligatory or voluntary good deeds on the day of resurrection. And brothers and sisters, I'd like to finish on that note, and that note being that Umar threatened the Ahlul Bayt, the pure family of the Holy Prophet, who the Prophet used to stand at their doors and stand at the door of Sayyidah Fatima, and he used to recite Ayat 33 of the Holy Quran. Allah intends to remove all abomination from you, all impurity from you, O members of the holy household. And this is the same Umar who came and brought fire, who brought a gang of men on the instructions of Abu Bakr, and as per according to the hadith of the Holy Prophet, whoever terrorized the people of Medina with oppression, like the way he did, and like the way he frightened Sayyidah Fatima, Allah will terrorize him. Allah will terrorize Umar for what he done. As the brother acknowledged, he accepts this narration. Alhamdulillah, then you too will accept that the curse of Allah and the angels and the people all together will be upon him, and none of his good deeds will be accepted on the day of judgment. And on that note, inshallah, I want to finish. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. So that.
No, one
that.
second. Where did you go?
Go ahead.
I have my 10 minutes.
You had it before.
Oh,
Now
it's
we're
my
going on to the
10
Q&A.
minutes. The ending statement. How he go? Where did he leave?
Wait, did he leave?
No,
Yeah,
no.
so
he's still here.
if you finish if you have your ending statement conclusion, and I'll have my ending conclusion as well.
Okay, so just to clarify, this is each of you want
To what you brought, to your question that you brought, or what will I do?
Okay, that's fine. We'll give you 10 minutes to respond. These are your closing statements. I think
Give
you
him
guys,
10 minutes to respond to his question, then he has his conclusion, then I have my conclusion.
that's not what we.
Brothers, apologies,
brother.
I'm quite done on time here, because I have to tend to something which Alexa kind of mentioned to you before.
Okay.
Exactly.
If you just finish off, if you just conclude, then
I will give me
conclude.
10 minutes and I'm done. I'm done with everything, inshallah.
If both sides agree with that, then yes, it will happen.
Yeah,
but
brother, 10
I'm
minutes.
also running a little short on time because I have to go in a little bit.
Yeah, same here.
So can we make it like 5-minute conclusions?
Okay, everything as you wish. I have no say in anything from the first day of the debate. Anyways, okay, give me my 5 minutes. The brother mentioned about Umar's nature, and he brought a hadith, etc., etc. Now, I'll bring you a hadith where an incident happened where the mahar of the ladies were so expensive and people couldn't marry, and so Umar wanted to decrease it by law. And so a woman came to him and she said, don't you hear the Quran, this verse from the Quran? And what did Umar say? He said, أخطأ عمر وصابت امرأة. And see, she interfered in his matters, in his sultani matters, but she got proof and hujjah. And Umar said, أخطأ عمر وأصابت الامرأة. The other thing about any man with this nature, and he's violent with women, he can be violent with his women, with his kids, but definitely not with Fatima Zahra, who her husband is Ali bin Abi Talib, Asadullah al-Ghalib, and with them Zubayr, Hawari Rasulullah, the two strongest men of all Islam in that house, and all of that to happen to them. Regarding Zuhri, I don't have it on me right now. I cannot find it, but I will give you a narration where Zuhri is saying that they were forced to give bay'ah during these days. Now, the brother mentioned Abu Nudra, that hadith there, and he didn't mention it in the beginning. He left it until the last second, but I will try to cover it very quickly. So I posted in debate resources. So this is debate resources. المستدرك على الصحيحين. حدثنا أبو العباس محمد بن يعقوب، حدثنا جعفر بن محمد بن شاكر، حدثنا عفان بن مسيلم، حدثنا وهيب، حدثنا داود بن أبي هند، حدثنا أبو نضرة عن أبي سعيد الخدري. Now focus here. حدثنا داود بن أبي هند، حدثنا أبو نضرة عن أبي سعيد الخدري. And then he narrates this alleged story where ظاهر of it is that it's a musnad by Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, and where Ali is forced to give the bay'ah. And I didn't have time to go over these narrations because I didn't think that they have a lot of value. They are contradictory. One time it's a big rock that hits it. Another time the sword flies away. Another time, Khalid bin Walid comes and Umar pushes Ali, and then Khalid bin Walid holds him. So these are contradictions. You cannot say that this is because they are hidden and not. These are contradictions of the riwayah. It's not adding up. Okay. So this one is an Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. And then the next one is in Ansab al-Ashraf. So this one here, it's an Abi Nudra. He does not say it's an Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. So it's here it's a mursala. And instead of Abu Dawood, here Jariri. Jariri narrates it from Abi Nudra. So when Jariri is narrating from Abi Nudra, he is narrating it without in irsal. He's not saying I heard it from Abi Sa'id al-Khudri. This is Jariri and Abi Nudra. This is Ansab al-Ashraf, الجزء الثاني. So it's a mursal one. We go to after it. Okay. Now we go to Wahib. Wahib is in the person that narrates from Abi Nudra عن أبي سعيد الخدري ابن خالد بن عشلان الحافظ الكبير المجود أبو بكر البصري الكرباسي البهلالي مولاهم. قال محمد بن سعد سجن وهيب فذهب بصره. قال وكان ثقة حجة يملي من حفظه وكان حفظه أحفظ من أبي عوانة. So he say that he lost his eyesight in Sijin, and he went to Basra and he started to give the hadith from his memory. Now we read again the البداية والنهاية. حدثنا وهيب حدثنا داود بن أبي هند حدثنا أبي نضرة. Again here Wahib. Whenever there is Wahib, there is Isnad. When there is no Wahib, it's to Abu Nadra Mursala. Yeah. So I will also weaken this narration from Baladhiri, and I will say that the Isnad is not correct because, again, it contradicts the correct ahadith, especially the one in Bukhari and by Zuhri, where he say that Ali didn't give bay'ah until 6 months. And this is the thabit, and this is the sahih. And I will conclude by saying no one dares to touch Fatima alayhi salam, nor threaten her by force. And it was a felta, like Umar said, and Ali at the end gave the bay'ah, and he told to Abu Bakr, and Abu Bakr cried in front.
All right, brother. The time is over. Before you guys go...
Can I just conclude quickly?
Yeah.
So you'll have 5 minutes to conclude.
You have 5 minutes to make your conclusion.
I don't need 5 minutes. Look, the amount of evidence I provided from the books of Hadith and Tariq, there should remain no doubt that this event had a historical basis. My hypothesis has been to look at the events and to reach the best possible conclusion to determine what occurred. We must evaluate this pool of data and decide what's the best plausible explanation. We know, due to the Sunni dogma in the belief about the Adalat of Sahaba and the fact they must hide, distort, and censor these events to the point of denial, as we've seen with the case of Dr. Salabi, who even accused the Shias of fabricating it, we have no choice but to accept that my interlocutor, with due respect, has failed in explaining the details, and their beliefs evolve around sanctifying these personalities at all costs. Shias accept and believe that these events did occur, and the Ahlul Bayt al-Islam were victims of state-sponsored terrorism. The attempt to exclude the possibility of such an event occurring is totally absurd. The fact is, it's widely accepted and reported by historians and even narrated by the earliest generations who were close to the event, and even included those individuals who were directly involved with those people who were directly involved. So this leaves us with no other conclusion to accept the Umar threatened Fatima alayha and the Ahlul Bayt essentially, and all those who gathered in her house. Brothers, on that note, brothers and sisters, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.